This is the Footbrawl Podcast with your hosts, Tyler, Andy, and Boyer.
Welcome back to Fantasy Footbrawl, presented by your performance-enhancing dads.
All three of them.
All three of us tonight. Welcome back, Boyer. You feeling better, man?
Mostly.
Good. Well, I'm digging the setup, the parents' kitchen, the whole move situation, screwing things up.
Yep.
It's all right. It's better than a garage.
It's going to be a mess for the next 4 or 5 weeks, boys. It's going to be a mess.
Love it.
That's right. You're with us.
I'm on location.
On a location. All right. So we had no trades this week. Boring.
Somebody trade.
Right? Everybody's been asking me to trade. I just haven't done it.
Who are they asking you for?
Everybody.
Hey, you should trade. Try to get Kittle. I hear he's good. You need a tight end.
I almost did that last week. I'm glad I did.
I had Waller.
All right. So, injuries and news. Russell Wilson's out for a handful of weeks.
Whoops.
All of the Giants are out. So if you have any of them, minus maybe Kadarius Toney at this point, because he looked okay till he punched some dude at the end.
And then he punched some dude in the face. That's the greatest thing. Everyone goes down with an injury, and then he punches a dude in the face.
I'm the only option. They have to play me. What are you doing?
Not what the refs say.
All right. CEH went down with an MCL sprain.
They put him on IR, yeah.
Yes, but that was at least good news because it could have been worse.
True.
Point
of note real quick on the IR that I learned the other day. It is a 3-game minimum. So if it includes your bye week, then you have to be out for 4 weeks, not 3. It's not days or weeks. It's 3 games that you have to miss, which is odd to me.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but just keep that in mind if your guy hits the IR and it includes their bye week, that week does not count.
Good to know. Juju is out with a shoulder injury, done for the year. He had surgery. And Damian Harris went out a couple times with a rib injury. It doesn't look to be anything serious right now.
His fumbling's a bigger issue, I think, for his playing time.
I was going to say his fumbling wasn't great, but are you banking on Bolden? Are you banking on Ramondre Stevenson? I don't know. I don't know what you do here. Other than just avoid New England's backfield at this point, I think. We've said it multiple times.
So quick excerpt there. Early in the season, I was desperate for a running back too, and I thought I had some wide receiver depth. So I offered DJ Moore for Damian Harris to Robbie. Never heard back. So, Robbie, check your messages, man, because
that's a big miss.
Yep.
That's a big miss.
Man, crazy. All right, let's also, Saquon and Kenny G are both on my team, both injured, so good work. Giants for screwing me over again. Just things I like to bitch about. That's one of them.
I don't understand how you didn't think that the Giants weren't going to screw you over somehow. You've got Giants and Lions on your players. I just don't understand why you're surprised.
All right, let's jump into quick what we learned from week 5. We're not talking about my injuries and screw-overs anymore. So the thing I learned, and I learned it the last handful of weeks, but damn it, that Burrow to Chase connection is just so freaking good. And maybe that whole college quarterback to college receiver going to the NFL is a good thing. Or maybe Chase is just that good it wouldn't have mattered where he was at. So, but man, that dude is good. Burrow can hit him. Nobody else on that team had more than 35 or 40 yards this week. Chase put a 70-yard touchdown in. The dude's insane right now. So that's what I got. Boy, what do you got?
Mahomes can't do it by himself. He's still good. His lowest fantasy week right now, I think, is 18 points. But his ceiling has taken a huge hit this year because it seems like teams have kind of figured out how to take Tyreek Hill out of games. most of the time. Every so often, he still gets loose, whatever. But that it's pretty much like a 2 or 3 deep shell, and keep everything in front of you, and then just spy on Kelsey, and just no one else has stepped up. I think that's why they went for Josh Gordon. They're just trying to add some other weapon, something that they can do to try and spread out the field. You look at someone like a team like the Raiders, and they were spreading out the field like crazy, even with a great player like Waller. Mahomes doesn't have that option. He pretty much has to look for 2 guys and then tuck and run. And teams are starting to willing to let him tuck and run because at some point he just chucks it up for grabs because he has to, and there's interceptions. I mean, the poor guy needs some help, and it's unfortunate to have such a great player have just nothing. And NFL defenses have figured out how to stop him, and I think that we'll probably see a down year for him for the rest of the year. I think he'll probably spring back. He's a great player. There's no way that we keep him down for long, but it's frustrating to watch because he was so much fun to watch, and now it's a little cringy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Andy, what do you got?
I will say, not for nothing, Patrick Mahomes is the second highest scoring quarterback behind Tom Brady right now. So even with his higher than normal interception rate, he's still doing okay fantasy output wise. But I'm with you. I don't like seeing Mahomes running as much as he has been. For a guy who's not without injury history, I'd like to see him just throwing the ball and keeping his legs safe and his head safe and all of the other parts of his body safe. But my thing that I learned is that the Bills are not afraid to run up the score. They are not one to take their foot off the gas in a game where they're winning. They currently lead the league in points scored. They currently lead the league in fewest points allowed. Their average point differential is like 21 points. So that's ridiculous. Not Patrick Mahomes, the other guy, Josh Allen. Yeah, the one that plays for the Bills. He's been really efficient. They've been airing the ball out, even with Diggs kind of disappointing so far, and we'll get into some of that here in a bit. He's getting it done. Touchdowns to Dawson Knox, touchdowns to Emmanuel Sanders, and yards to Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders, and they're doing it. They look like a Super Bowl contender, and I know that was not uncommon to hear before the start of the season, but they've really established themselves. So go Bills.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to switch things up a little bit here today. We're going to go into some booms or some surprises from the season. We'll go into some bust or disappointments. And then we'll go into some kind of players where you're not mad about playing them, but are you really getting what you want out of them? I don't know. So let's start with a little boom of the season so far. Andy, who you got?
Yeah, so my surprise of the season is Mike Williams. I think everybody has always kind of had their eye on Mike Williams, and he's flashed here and there. But health has been an issue, and then just getting the volume needed to be the guy hasn't always been there for him. I think that Joe Lombardi being the offensive coordinator there has been really good for him. He kind of is filling the Michael Thomas role in the Saints office. Hi, Pat.
Hi, Pat.
Hey, Pat. Hey, Pat.
Hey. As a guest appearance.
Guest dad on the podcast here. But I have been very pleased to have Mike Williams on my team, and with the volume being what it is, I don't expect a downturn like you do with some of these guys who start hot in other seasons. But as long as he stays healthy, he's looking like he's the guy right now, and I'm excited.
Yeah, I would agree. I like Mike Williams. He's probably still doing well because I traded him away in my other league. I didn't draft him in any of the other leagues. So
I appreciate your sacrifice because I don't want him to get hurt. Thank you for that.
Health should be okay. So my boomer surprise of the year so far is Hollywood Brown. dude's just been putting up numbers. He was drafted for $2. He's clearly the guy in Baltimore. For $2, having him just go off. And even then, if you look at it, he dropped three potential touchdowns in a week. I mean, had he put any of those in, the dude's even higher. You know, he's at 13, 17, 15, and 24, and you throw that 5-point week in the middle there. I mean, had he just caught one of those, he's over 10 that week as well, which is crazy for a guy like Hollywood Brown that's struggled. Dude's looking good. Getting him for $2 was a great buy.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, he's currently wide receiver 6 in standard scoring. If he caught one of those balls, he would be at worst wide receiver 3, if not more.
Yep. And he was drafted low on the bench. So it's a great pickup. And then I have another one real quick, and it is Zach Moss. He was a healthy scratch, inactive week 1. And ever since then, he's come in and really taken that job. It is an explosive offense. And I don't think he's going to lose this job to Singletary. Even if he splits time, Moss has been getting catches out of the backfield. He's been getting the goal line work if Josh Allen doesn't. He's been getting most of the work, and I think Singletary is just going to keep fading. I'm going to say this is not so much of a surprise for me, as I thought he would take the backfield, and most of the offseason, he was a guy I was targeting because I expected him to be good. One of the biggest surprises is that he sat week 1 as an inactive, and now he's really taken over that backfield ever since. So I don't know what the Bills were doing, what they were thinking, sitting in week 1. But ever since then, the dude's been putting up good numbers for being drafted so late.
I'm pretty sure that a report came out after the fact, well after the fact, that he had some sort of minor injury that he was dealing with, and that was part of the reason that they sat him. So back to my 4 weeks ago, fuck the beat writers. Where are you guys at on that? Because I think Duo was the one that drafted him, and they dropped him after week 1 because that seems reasonable if one of the 2 main guys in the backfield was a healthy scratch in week 1 for no reason. That doesn't look good. So yeah, I'd be concerned. I would consider cutting them at that point. But if it was injury related, as it turned out to be, then you don't feel as bad about it and you hold on to them. But nobody who follows the team directly as their sole source of income and employment seemed to know about that. So
yeah, and he's running back 20 right now. And had he, even put up, let's say his average 10 a week prior to that, I mean, he jumps another 5 spots. He's up there with Mixon and Swift and Gibson. So, I mean, at this point, I appreciate the Duo dropping him because I picked him up right away, thinking that he was still going to be the guy. So,
yeah, he's definitely been the touchdowns guy. I think they're splitting carries. I mean, Singletary has 100 more rushing yards and 10 more carries than Moss does. So I don't know that I'm as convinced as you that Moss is separating himself in terms of touches, but if he gets the touchdowns, then who cares, right? They're pretty 50-50, but Moss gets the goal line, so that's a win.
Moss has been getting catches too.
So. I mean, they both have 8 catches on the year, so right. I'm not super jazzed about the volume there either way.
Moss has played the last game, but I'm expecting him to keep moving.
I'll say I think Moss is getting the high value carries and targets. When they need to rely on someone, it's been Moss. Andy, I read a different article that said it was like a personal something or other, but again, that it was like 3 or 4 weeks after the fact. So who knows? It was clearly not just a healthy scratch to be a healthy scratch. There was a reason behind it. No one knew. So that's super frustrating.
All right, Boyer, go ahead. What do you got for that?
This was supposed to be Boomer surprises. This is definitely more of a boom than a surprise, I suppose, but it was Jamar Chase for me. We'll go back to him because I didn't expect him, at least in redraft, to be this good this year. He's gotten a touchdown, I think, just about every game. Can't expect that every game, but the Bengals are clearly using him in a way that gives him a lot of yards on these longer plays, and that should continue throughout the year. So wide receivers normally will struggle in their first year. There's some outliers. I mean, Justin Jefferson, some guys have nice seasons. Jamar Chase is on his pace for a really, really good redraft season. Normally we see these kind of breakouts in year 2 and 3. That's the big thing, right? The year 2 and 3 breakouts. So I didn't expect him to be this good. I knew in Dynasty he was going to be a knock in the park, but that being said, I didn't expect him to be what he did week 1 and on. I didn't see that coming at all. And he's been awesome. He can see the ball clearly. The no white stripes is clearly not a problem. The drops from preseason, clearly not a problem. He's a good player. He shook off the rests during preseason, and he's a baller. So he's my boom because he's whoever drafted him. I don't know what the value was. It wasn't a lot of money. They got a easy wide receiver 2 the rest of the year, I feel like, for very cheap.
I think that's a point in favor of the bed and breakfast, as it were, the QB wide receiver relationship. The fact that Burrow and Chase had that relationship ahead of time definitely speeds things up, I'm sure. But from that aspect, I expected Chase to struggle a little bit because I wasn't expecting Burrow to be full go week 1 off of his injury. I figured that was going to take some time, especially because he was a rookie last year. It's not like he's coming back as a 5-year vet, knowing exactly what to do. So I didn't expect the Bengals offense as a whole to be moving the ball this well. So I agree with you, Boyer. It's been a very pleasant surprise, fun to watch.
Yeah, and as my second option, I was going to put in Kupp, but I didn't want to pat myself on the back too much. He is just, I don't think anybody saw Kupp getting this kind of attention from Stafford, and defenses are starting to keep on. What?
I said sexually?
Defenses are starting to key in on it, and he's still getting a ton of targets. He's just not getting some of the touchdowns and some of the longer catches. But McVay is now starting to use him as a decoy because of how well he did in those first 3 weeks. I watched the Rams-Seahawks game, and they were using Kupp to clear out a lot of space for Robert Woods coming in underneath or behind him. So I don't think that this is a mirage for Kupp. I don't think he'll have the tear that he did in the first 3 weeks, but it's clear that they're going to use him when they can and that there's a serious connection between him and Stafford. So that was the other one that I was blown away at. I was just hoping to get a wide receiver too. I wasn't expecting to get an actual player.
So I had heard with that Seahawks game that what had happened was Cooper Kupp's alarm didn't go off and Robert Woods crashed breakfast that week. So he's the one that got all the targets. That was my understanding.
Yeah, so watching the game, the Seahawks were following him with 2 guys almost every play, and it cleared out like 10 or 15 yards behind him or underneath him, and Woods would come in underneath that space, and Stafford would be like, oh, well, that guy's double covered, so I'm just going to give it to Woods. Eventually, all of this will balance out. I have to imagine, like, you just can't hyper-focus on either one of them, but it could be like a Lockett, DK Metcalf situation where, Lockett has these huge, massive games, and Lockett has his huge, massive games, and sometimes they put up stinkers on the other side. So, we'll see how that goes the rest of the season. I think it'll be really interesting to see how that offense works.
So real quick, is Woods still the clear number 2 in that offense?
I think after the Seahawks game, he is.
Okay.
I mean, are you thinking it's Sean Jackson or Van Jefferson? I don't think either of those guys has passed Woods.
No. A week ago or 2 weeks ago, I said Robert Woods is still the clear number 2 in that offense, and I had argument against him. So I was just curious if it was still Woods is number 2 or not.
I think after last week, they proved that, yes, they're going to start getting Woods more involved, and they're utilizing Kupp as the way to get him in those spaces. It's better than getting Van Jefferson in those spaces. I think they trust Woods more to do that.
I've been calling for the Woods game for the last 2 or 3 weeks, so it wasn't me.
It might have been Boyer. He was telling me about Van Jefferson and Deshaun Jackson, so I just wanted to verify that we were still good on Woods. And also Jamar Chase was drafted at $8 as the wide receiver 3 to Chris. So he needed Chase to be decent because he's had AJ Brown and Devontae Adams as his keepers. So Chase was his number 3 wide receiver. So
Tough spot to be there.
tough spot to have 2 good wide receivers and then draft Chase.
Yeah, it must be rough.
So all right. I'm gonna switch it up a little bit here and we're gonna jump into a little pow. What you drinking early?
I like
it. Andy, what do you got?
Sam Adams Oktoberfest.
Boy, what are you
Supporting the
working on?
founding fathers.
So because I'm at my parents', I'm rotating through all the good beers right now. But Harp has been my main one. I've got a little 312 and a little Oktoberfest to mix in. So I got some options here.
All right. I'm hitting Hacker Shore again this week. I finally got my Oktoberfest in the fridge, so those will probably break out next
Did
week.
you just cough up a loogie, or can you say that name again for me?
Hacker Shore? Hacker Shore? Hacker Pashore? But anyway, Andy's really been harping on this water lately. Because he's on this like health kick, and one of Andy's favorite sayings is bigger poops makes you lose weight better, right?
That is accurate.
That is accurate. It is 100% proven. If you poop bigger, you lose weight quicker. That's ask Andy. He would tell you. Robbie,
that just makes sense.
Robbie, I don't want to listen to your physical therapy type stuff on training stuff.
Sure, Robbie would tell you to poop big too. I don't know.
That's right. But a quick life advice that I've got for you guys is I don't care how great the hand soap smells. You should never walk out of the restroom smelling your hands.
Thanks for that.
I just thought you guys might need it right now. So just.
That was good.
My kids come out of the bathroom asking me to smell their hands, and I don't like that either.
All right. Anyway, let's jump into some busts here. I thought we should break it up a little bit. Andy, hit me with a bust or disappointment for the year so far.
Yeah, so I tried to pick somebody who wasn't hurt, and I think the clear culprit here is Allen Robinson. He's averaging less than 40 yards a game through 5 weeks. He's averaging less than 6 targets per week. He's only got 1 touchdown. It's just been bad. And like the Bears offense, even in the last few years, has been pretty low volume. It's not like we've got a 4,000 yard passer ever historically in the history of our franchise. So, he's been a guy who could do it with a bad quarterback. But this year, Mooney has more targets than him. And the offense is just very, very slow. The defense is good enough that it doesn't matter. We're running the ball a little bit more. There's just not a lot there for him. I don't think I expect it to be this bad going forward, but I'm not excited about him going back to being Allen Robinson while he's on the Bears.
And to be fair with that, even with Fields on, he seems to go deep to Mooney more than he does to Robinson, which, I mean, Mooney's a great player, but when there's only so much volume and it's going to these deep shots to Mooney, man, there's just nothing there for him left.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to jump into my bust or disappointments here. And I'm going to start with Kittle. Kittle I thought he was going to slowly start bringing himself back into relevance. He is currently the tight end 20. Everybody had him at tight end 2 or 3, depending upon who you talk to.
Definitely 3. Only you wanted him ahead of Waller.
Well, he's a Niner. Whatever. It's fine. But now he's injured. He's on the IR for a handful of weeks here, and I don't know how good this is going to be for Kittle in the long run this year. I don't imagine he's really going to be on the up and up when he comes back from IR. Debo's really taking control of that wide receiver room. Because my other bust is Ayuk. I don't know. Everybody, all the analysts, everybody had Ayuk hyped so high over Debo. Debo's not going to be crap this year because Ayuk's there, Kittle's there. And some of us really liked Debo over those guys, but it's fine. We won't talk about it here. But Debo's a good wide receiver, and his issue's been injury. If the dude can stay healthy, I expected him to out-target a second-year Brandon Ayuk that got full volume the year before because Kittle was out, because Debo was out, because they were struggling with anything and everything. They had to force feed somebody the ball, and it was Ayuk. I didn't expect him to come into this season. I didn't expect him to do what he's doing now and literally not play. But I didn't expect him to have the season he had at the end of last year. But everybody had him hyped up. Everybody was excited for him. So that's why I'm putting him on my bust, because everybody was high on him.
Fun fact on the Niners, Brandon Ayuk has fewer targets, fewer catches, and fewer yards receiving than one Mohamed Sanu.
What about Kyle Juszczyk?
He's behind Kyle Juszczyk and all those things too. But I was looking specifically at wide receiver.
So, but your fullback is working harder than Ayuk. That's not a good thing.
It's not a good thing.
So the draft strategy next year is to just draft all of the 49er backups, knowing that you'll actually get to play them within 3 or 4 weeks of
they'll be
the
good
season,
for a
right?
week, and then they'll be hurt.
I mean,
the strategy is don't draft Niners.
I'm just thinking cost benefit. Spend $1, get a week out of them. You're happy.
Probably true.
Boyer, what do you got for your bust or disappointment here?
So I tried to find a non-injury player, but in my research, I found a player that I was really disappointed, and he has had an injury, and it's AJB. Week 1, 10.9 points. Seems like he was going to be just fine. Julio, I think that week was okay, which meant that, there was questions whether or not they could coexist, if AJB was going to get his points. It looked fine. Then the next healthy week he had 4.3 points. Then he had a couple injury-riddled 0.3 and 0 points, so we'll give him a break on that, although his knees seem to be something that are a little bit chronic at this point. He dealt with it a little bit last year as well, where he missed a few games, and then he came back and he was AJB, so that's great. But then next game against Jacksonville, great spot for him, 3.8 points. So if you draft AJB, that is not what you wanted to get out of him in the first 5 weeks. And he's most likely going to be trending up, but it's concerning even when he was healthy, no Julio Jones in the last game, if I remember right. And he's still only up with 3.8 points. So the Titans, instead of trying to spread it out more and get away from Derrick Henry, seem to be leaning on him more for some reason, which doesn't really make sense to me after giving him 1 billion carries in the last 2 years. So everyone thought that maybe AJB, Julio, they get to more passing. Tannehill is definitely able to do it, but they just haven't done it. Instead, they keep going through Derrick Henry. And I think there'll be some disappointment going forward. I don't think it'll be quite as bad as this. It won't be Allen Robinson levels, but it's a concern for sure. Right now he's wide receiver 79, which is not what you paid for.
Right.
Tannehill was almost a consideration for my disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some Titans numbers here, if you'll give me the privilege. So the two leading players on their team in receptions, Jeremy McNichols with 17 catches is number 1. He's a running back. Number 2, Derrick Henry. Not known for catching the ball, 14 receptions. And then number 3 is Chester Rogers with 13. So their leading receptions through 5 games is a running back who's caught the ball 17 times. On the other hand, Derrick Henry has how many carries through 5 weeks? 142.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I would say he's going to die, but he's like the Energizer Bunny. He just keeps going.
He feeds off getting beat up.
28.4 carries per week, plus another almost 3 catches, is over 31 touches per week through 5 weeks. On top of the year he had last year, at some point, I don't care how amazing of a physical specimen Derrick Henry is, he's amazing. This is not sustainable.
How much air do you think he's got left in those tires there, Andy? Quite a bit.
I mean, if they continue at this pace, you figure he's not going to make it past like week 10.
That's fair.
I mean, week 10 would be 300 plus touches already.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. No way. You can't do 17 games of 30 touches a game. That's 400 and I don't know. Nope. 17 by 30 is 510. 510 touches. Nobody does that. Not even old people. Back when they did that, they didn't do that.
Right. So before we move on to the players, let's talk about a little air in our tire here, all right? You guys remember when air was free at the gas stations? Now it's like $1.50. You know why?
Why?
Inflation.
Gosh dang it, Ty.
All right.
I like that we're just slipping the dad jokes in. We're not giving them their own segment.
Well, we'll throw one in at the end. Since I had a handful of them today, I figured I'd mix them in here and try to find a good segue into each one. And so far, I'm nailing it.
You're doing great, bud.
All
Far
right.
better than me.
Well, I slide them in instead of giving them their own 5-minute section, you know?
I just want to give them their proper due.
Fair enough. I like to give people laughs along the way. Let's go to our players so far. Andy, what do you got?
So I went with CD. Everybody was super high on CD Lamb. He did pretty well in his rookie year, especially considering that Dak was down. He seemed to have been Dak's preferred guy in those first 5 games before the injury last year. So I was pretty high on him and excited for him to see what he would do. And it just hasn't happened yet. I pulled together some numbers. He's averaging less than 10 fantasy points a week. He's averaging less than 5 catches per week. He's got 2 touchdowns through 5 weeks, which is okay. That's on pace for like 7 on the year. So like, that's not terrible, but I mean, Amari Cooper's got 4 touchdowns. He's got more catches. And then Dalton Schultz has been really involved too. So I expected this to be much more the CeeDee Lamb show. And if you look at Amari Cooper and you look at CeeDee Lamb, it's like, I mean, CeeDee Lamb is like Derrick Henry. He is a physical specimen. He is somebody that you look at and you go, that guy is good at football. And Amari Cooper, he plays football. He's good at football. I'm not going to take that away from him, but he's not CeeDee Lamb. So I don't get it.
Cedric Wilson is getting a lot of touches as well for the Cowboys. I mean, he took Gallup's place and he's been getting a lot of touches as well. And that's driving me nuts, especially as being a CD owner. Like,
well, he averages 2 catches a week, so don't stress too much on that.
No, I know. But I can't imagine if Gallup takes more when he comes back. I'm only going to be in more trouble.
True. You're always in trouble.
Or are you going to jump in on CD at all, or are you good?
I was really high on CD going into the year. I thought he was going to take over as the number 1 role, and Cooper still seems to have the 1 role, even though that's been diminished because they've spread out the ball more. It makes sense as an NFL franchise. So, like, from fantasy perspective, we're disappointed, but it makes sense for the Cowboys to do it because they've got a ton of weapons. And I mean, at some point, he will be fine. Maybe not this year. Maybe it'll take next year once they try and get out of the contract from CD or from Cooper and try and use that money somewhere else, whether it's the offensive line or the defense or something like that, and let CD cook, right? But it's frustrating because when you watch him play, he passes the eye test. He just doesn't seem to be getting the targets and the looks that it feels like he should.
Yeah, but the Cowboys are 4-1, and they're second in the league in points scored. They're only 2 points behind the Bills, so they have no incentive to change what they're doing. It's working.
Yeah, they're doing a very good job of spreading things around and keeping defenses on their heels. So,
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna jump into mine, and my first one. I do have two because
of course,
Naturally.
I just like to hear myself talk. Adam Thielen is my first. He had a 21-point week the first week, 92 yards, 2 touchdowns. But after that, he's had 39 yards and a touchdown, 50 yards and a touchdown, 46 yards and 40 yards. He's been getting targeted, except for last game when he had 40 yards against Detroit. He only got targeted 3 times. But before that, he was targeted 7, 8, 9, 10. So, I mean, he's getting the targets. He's got 4 touchdowns on the year. But with 4 touchdowns on the year, I'm not really stoked about the numbers. He was drafted as the number 13 wide receiver. Being that we do auction, he was the 13th highest paid receiver. And he's currently wide receiver 20. He definitely has the upside still. He's still a fine play every week, but drafting him at 13, seeing him sit at 20, he's kind of like that mediocre guy to me where if he's not scoring a touchdown, you're not getting great value. But when he does score a touchdown, you're getting 10, 15 points a week, which is fine. But I don't know. What do you guys think about Thielen?
He's starting to feel kind of like a tight end, where he's one of the guys that they look to in the red zone. He's tall, he gets touchdowns, but he's not the yardage guy. And we kind of talked about this in the preseason about how Thielen transitioned last year. I think he had 14 touchdowns, maybe 13, I don't remember, but he didn't crack 1,000 yards, right? And he's kind of headed in that direction this year. He's got 4 touchdowns in 5 games, but he's only got 267 yards, which is a hair over 50 yards a game. So he feels like a tight end where you're playing him, but you're hoping for a touchdown. And Thielen can get it for you, but it's not ideal.
Right. I think he'll be up from wide receiver 20 by the end of the year, though. I don't think he'll stay that low. Just because I think the Vikings offense is good and they will still use him. But you're just not thrilled about where you drafted him and where he's at right now. So my next guy is Joe Mixon. He was drafted right about where his current value is. I believe he was give or take like the 13th or so off the board as well. 13th, 14th, somewhere in that range. And he's currently sitting about that same spot. Mixon has gotten volume. Week 2, he had 20 attempts, only put up 69 yards, finished with 7.1 fantasy points. Week 3 had 18 attempts, put up 90 yards, ended with 9.4. His fantasy output, once again, aside from week 1, he put up 21 points week 1. But aside from that, he has 7, 9, 12, and 9. Being drafted on that RB1 fringe, expecting the volume, expecting this offense to kind of take a step forward. We just really haven't seen that from Mixon yet, even though he has been getting some decent volume. So he's kind of one of my kind of plays as well right now. But you're starting him every week. Yeah, go ahead, Boyer.
Boyer doesn't like Mixon.
I don't like Mixon. That being said, is that coming out of college, I loved his running style. I thought he could be a really great running back. What I didn't like was his offensive line and his injury history. And good for him, he stayed healthy this year. But you said he's got the volume and no points. I mean, you got to see that coming. They drafted Chase and not an offensive lineman, which is clearly working out for them because Chase is getting 70-yard touchdowns. But that's also taking away from Mixon. It keeps him from having a decent offensive line, and somebody else is getting those yards and those touchdowns and taking away those opportunities from him. So the talent is there. He's got to be like the most frustrating fantasy player in the history of ever. And that's why last year, I stayed away from him like the plague, because it's just so upsetting to see the Bengals waste a talent like that. And it's very similar to kind of what like we talk about the Jaguars and James Robinson. They had a free space and they didn't take it. Joe Mixon is a really valuable spot, but you got to give him something around him to help him get those yards and bring that talent out. And they've just refused to do so. So it's an indictment on the Bengals organization. It's the dumbest thing ever. And he could be fine he'll be okay the rest of the season. I don't anticipate this changing very much.
Yeah, well, and for me, Gio Bernard going to Tampa, Mixon should have had a full workload. Samaje Perine isn't supposed to be the guy. He came in and with Mixon's injury lighter load last week and played well. So we'll see what happens from here. But I think Mixon's still the guy. I think he's still going to get better. He's still going to get the volume. We'll just see what he does with it.
Yeah, he's currently third in the league in carries. His floor for fantasy points is 7.1 on the season. So you can't be too mad about that. He hasn't had a true down week. And he's only got 3 touchdowns, where one of the ways that I was disappointed is he's only got 10 targets on the year. He's only got 8 catches and 31 receiving yards. I was hoping that with Gio out of town, like Mixon can catch the ball. I was hoping for a little bit more in that department, but having 93 carries through 5 weeks, and that was with only having 10 last week because he was injured and they were letting Perine have more of the touches there. The volume's keeping you afloat kind of the same way Josh Jacobs did last year. But
right, you're just not super excited about it yet. But I think long term you might get excited about it again. We'll see. If he can end in that RB1, high RB2 situation where he's at right now, I think he'll be fine. But he's, a lot of people expected him to be a little bit higher than he is, and he just hasn't done it. All right, boy, let's move on to
any consideration for defenses adjusting to take the top off of Jamar Chase and look more that direction, and then things opening up underneath for Mixon?
I don't think they need. I think they can do that and still keep Mixon in check because that offensive line isn't good enough.
Fair.
And you got to look at, you got Boyd and Higgins. So even if they double up on Chase and try to hold him down, you still got 2 decent other receivers. And you saw Uzama put up 2 touchdowns the other week when whoever left him wide open. I mean, they've got some good weapons. If they double up Chase, they can still put 4 or 5 in the box and hold Mixon down.
Fair enough.
All right, Boyer, jump into yours.
My first and lesser one is going to be Kamara. I think he's had good games and he's been okay, but I think everyone expected him to do more and be more of a focal point of that offense, and that's been a little disappointing. Finally had a really good game last game, but when Jameis Winston was named the starter, everyone said that was better for Kamara, and it just doesn't seem to have panned out that way. Kamara's too talented to be down for long. He'll be fine, but it's been a little odd to see how he's been utilized, or if just defenses are too focused on him. I haven't really been able to watch the games, but I thought that was interesting. My main guy is Diggs. I've got the numbers on Stefan Diggs. This poor guy, he had a breakout season last year. And I mean, there was all signs were pointing that he would be just fine this year, and he's doing okay. But he's got 43 fantasy points this year, so averaging, just at, what do we just do? Week 4? I'm sorry, I'm losing my mind here. We just
week
did
5
week 4.
just finished.
Week 5 just finished, so under 10 points a week so far. Just like CeeDee Lamb, he's had 6.9 points, 12 points, 6.2 points, 11 points, and 6.9 points. So a floor of 6.5 and a ceiling of 11 or 12 is just not what you were expecting if you drafted him. And the frustrating thing is that the Bills they're running up scores. They're scoring a ton of points, and it's not going through Diggs. So I don't know if that's going to change or not. I think Diggs is too talented for him not to have a higher ceiling than 11 or 12 points per game. But he's been very meh. Like he hasn't lost you games yet, but if you drafted him to be better than this. So I've been really surprised by his usage and his overall output.
Yeah, Kamara's never had 200 carries in a year. And this year he already has 94 through 5 games. So something to keep an eye on. He's only got 1 rushing touchdown. He's got 3 receiving touchdowns, but that offense is just so different without Breeze there.
Kamara and Michael Thomas. I mean,
true, but like Kamara was the safety blanket for Drew Brees, and Winston just does not move the ball down the field the same way that Drew Brees does, and he doesn't look to dump to Kamara near as much. So things have just changed a lot for him.
I just noticed that preseason when Winston was listed, everyone thought that was going to be better for him, and it just I don't know if it's made a difference. I don't know if between Winston and Hill that he would be any different at all. It could be the exact same output at this point.
Yeah, I expected Winston to have more of the dump off. When he got hurried, that he would look to dump to Kamara, whereas, if Hill was the quarterback, then he's probably going to do something more with his legs than look for Kamara. But, I mean, Winston's been passing for 150 yards a week, so it doesn't matter what he's doing. There's just not enough there.
All right, let's move on to Andy's going to hit us with some weekly point stats. And talk about, there was some questions about, was this the highest week in fantasy history points wise? So Andy, go ahead and hit us with some stats here.
Yeah. So we had a discussion in our league chat. Our good old commish threw out that he felt like this was a pretty high scoring week, and maybe could this have been the highest scoring week ever in the history of our league? We're in our 11th year of 12 teams. So I pulled together the numbers to find out if it was or not. And it was. This past week was the highest scoring league or the highest scoring week in the history of our league by a pretty wide margin. We totaled across the 12 teams 1393 points. The previous high was 1319. So if those numbers don't feel like they mean very much in terms of like a per team average, the previous high was 109.9 points per team. This week was 116.1. So an extra 7 points per team. That's a big jump. Noteworthy that I found was that the previous high was 2019 week 5, and that was the week that Duo put up a 200 week, which is by far the highest we've ever seen in our league from one team in 1 week. I think the highest before that was like 170. So that obviously was driving some of that, but this week we just had a bunch of teams in the 140 plus, and somebody put up a 60, and we still.
Hey, I'm glad I could be a part of this.
We still did a lot. So
yeah, I put up 100. I put up 170 or 107.
You would be what, 3
points,
teams?
And I would have beaten 3 teams this week.
Yeah. So it was a big week. So those are some of the higher scores in week history. We've only had one other week over 1,300 total points, and that was 2020 week 2. So all 3 of our highest scoring weeks have come in the last 3 seasons. Lowest week in history was a 915, which is a good 480 points less than what we did this week. That's a lot. That week, in that particular week, which was our lowest scoring ever in history, Matthew Friar won his matchup with 58.24 points.
Good work.
He won a game of fantasy football with 58 points.
Is that the week Paul put up 19 or what?
It is not. I actually went and checked that. the week that Paul put up his infamous 19 points was a pretty good week. We had 1179 that week as a league, so the other teams carried him through. But yeah, the worst week ever, the 915 in 2017, was 50 points lower than any other week. And in that week, 3 teams scored in the 50s, 2 teams scored in the 60s, 2 teams scored in the 70s, and 3 teams scored in the 80s, which means only 2 teams cracked 89 points, and they both put up over 100, but still. 10 teams were 80 or worse.
That's going to be a tough one to break.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that too. So you figure, what I say, 480 point difference between our worst and our worst and our best week. 480 by 12 teams, that's 40 points per team worse in our worst week compared to what we just did last week. So that's a pretty tall order.
Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead, and Andy's got a little quiz for us on playoff odds and whatnot through 5 weeks. Andy, you got some trivia for us real quick?
I do. So how, I don't know if I asked you guys this already or not, but how many teams in the now 11-year history of our league do you think have started 0-5?
3.
I'm going to go with 5.
It's 4. I would have guessed way more than that. I feel like 0-5 is not that uncommon. One every 3-ish years.
Good work, Ty.
I think Walker had a real bad year. I guess he had one. I guess a 12th team had one because they were all, I mean, there was a majority of bad 12 teams, but I guess one of them had it. Walker, 12th team, and maybe Jeremy had one, would be my guess.
Yep. So 2012 Walker, 2014 Tony, 2015 Charlie, and 2016 Jeremy. We haven't had an 0-5 since 2016.
I would not have guessed Charlie. So
yeah, everybody's had a bad year, and that must have been one of Charlie's. So
I knew I did not start 0-5. I've started bad, like this year,
Mhm.
never 0-5. All right, Andy, go ahead.
all right, so a 1-4 record. What do you guys think the odds of making playoffs with a 1-4 record is?
6%.
About 9.1%.
Oh, to go into the points. I'm sorry. Can I change my answer to like 6.73%?
You can, but you'll still lose. It's 10%. 2 of 20 teams that started 1-4 in our league have made the playoffs. Both of them Walker. Walker in 2014, Walker in 2018 made the playoffs after a 1-4 start.
There's a chance.
Yep, this was all for you, Ty. I know you're stressing out about what you can do. I will say that I think that there is, I don't know that it gives you a better chance, but there's more opportunity because you get that 15th week.
Right.
So there is that. All right, moving on. 2-3 record. What are your odds of making playoffs? Keeping in mind that like start of the season, 4 out of 12 teams is a 33% chance of making playoffs.
26.7.
God damn it. I was about to say 26% too.
I'll go on the 0.7.
Yeah.
Higher or lower than 26.7?
I'll go lower.
It is lower. It is 25%. 9 of 36 teams with a 2-3 record have made the playoffs. So that's not bad.
No.
It feels about right. I mean, lower than what you would expect. Now with a 3-2 record, keeping in mind that 33% of all teams that started 0-0 make the playoffs.
35%. 35.897477392.
42.
42. Okay, I would have been more with Ty in my guessing had I not done this research ahead of time. because you got to assume it's better than 33 by a little bit because you're above 500, but it's not. 32.4%, 11 out of 34 teams have made the playoffs with a 3-2 record. So really not all that much different than a 2-3 record.
Yeah, which makes sense.
That just gave me some hope.
And then with a 4-1 record, what do you guys think? How sure of a thing is it at that point?
This one, I think I'm going to jump.
72%.
I don't think it's quite that high. I'm going to go with 55.
55. Ties closer. It's 66. 16 out of the 24 teams that have started 4-1 have made the playoffs. Jeremy has missed playoffs twice after a 4-1 start, both in 2018 and 2019.
That's rough.
That is rough. So of the 8 teams to miss, Jeremy's 2 of them. Nobody else had more than 1. All right. And the moment of truth. First, how many times in 11 years of 12 teams a year, so 132 different 5-game starts to a season, how many times has somebody started 5-0 in our league?
7.
3.
Only 2.
Oh, I was gonna say 2.
Wow.
All right. Next fun question, just for slowly backing into this. What year was the last year that we saw a team start 5-0?
Well, the last time 0-5 was 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Not that means anything with 5-0, but I'm gonna say 2017 was the year Colin won, which I don't think was a good year for any of us.
2014.
I'm gonna say 2015.
It was 2013. Boyer started 5-0 in 2011, and he made the playoffs. And I started 5-0 in 2013, and I made the playoffs. So if you should be so lucky to start 5-0, which apparently never happens, you have yet to miss the playoffs. If you ever do it, don't disappoint me and Boyer over here, because you should be in.
We're in the
Cool
club.
Kids Club. Yeah.
All right. Andy, you want to hit us with win projections here real quick?
Yeah.
I should be better than 1 win.
Yeah, so this has been a little bit of just digging into some numbers to help Ty feel better about his 1-4 start, because his team's better than that. So I did some luck analysis based on the 10 years and came up with like your win probability based on what bucket you score. And if you're less than 70 points in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 100s, 110s, 120s or more. So what your probability of getting a win was in each of those buckets. And I just took those probabilities and plastered them over the scores from this year to come up with a projected win total based on the points that you're scoring week to week, and compare that to the actual win total. So anybody care to guess who is the unluckiest team in the league? You can have 2 guesses, but you're only gonna need 1.
I won't guess.
I'm guessing it's Walker.
It's not Walker, but that was a really bad guess. It's Tyler.
By a lot.
By a very wide margin. So Ty's projected win total is 3.3 wins. He has 1 for a difference of 2.3. The next highest is Colin Kelly with a projected win total of 2.9. He has 2. So Ty's almost a full win and a half less lucky than the next most unlucky guy. So third is me, then Friar and Duo, and then Warrior, Charlie, Robbie, Paul, Chris, Walker are all right there in the middle. And then Jeremy is the luckiest team in the league. Only half a win. The the numbers show he didn't deserve. And that's driven pretty heavily by the fact that he beat Walker with the second lowest score in the league a couple weeks ago. He did not really, had he played any other team in the league, he would have lost that week, but he got to play Walker. So
I'm not lucky this year.
You are
middle of the pack lucky.
You are 0.4 wins unlucky right now.
It makes me sad. I missed my luck. I just want to make playoffs. I don't really care.
So there's still time.
So what we're going to do this week, we're going to skip all the player analysis on the lineups. We are going to give you our predictions and maybe one quick thing about each team. But other than that, we're going to move through these pretty quick. Let's start with Andy versus Friar. Boyer, you want to give us who's going to win Andy versus Friar?
Can I hit last week real quick before Boyer goes?
Oh, yeah.
You can absolutely hit last week before Boyer goes.
Cool. All right. So Ty still sucks at this thing. He only got 2 right. He picked Friar, he picked Charlie, but so did everybody else. Our esteemed guest, Paul, got 4 correct. He was the only one that picked Walker to beat Boyer. Good work, Paul. But he failed to pick Colin over Robbie, so he gave that one back. Boyer and I also picked 4 correct last week. Andy, Friar, Charlie, and Colin. So 4 for me and Boyer, 2 for Ty. Season total 20 for me and Boyer, 15 for Ty. Ty, you got to catch up. I even told you last week to pick Chris over you just so you could try to get that game back. You didn't do it.
Just as a heads up, you guys remember preseason when I said Walker was going to have 1 win? I said it was going to be week 5, and Boyer's like, "Oh, he's probably playing me that week."
He was, and he did.
And I didn't pick him. So I done messed that one up. I should have just stuck with my guns. But he already got his 1 win, so I couldn't give him another one. I was just confused on what to do with him.
Fair.
All right. Let's jump into this week, see how bad I can do. I apologize if I picked you in advance. I'm picking whoever's playing me because it seems to be the way I got to pick. Boyer, Andy, or Friar?
Gonna go with Andy. His Browns running backs are doing good. Mike Williams has a good matchup. Friar doesn't have the firepower on it.
Yep. I'm going to take Andy as well. I think he's got tremendous upside. He showed it this week. Javonte Williams took a bigger role this week, and I think if he can continue to move forward, they've got Vegas, and Vegas showed that they are not all that great. So we'll see what happens, but I've got Andy on the win. Andy, what do you got?
I'm picking me too. I'm excited for Scary Terry against the Chiefs defense, but I am nervous about Friar's Bucks on Thursday night against Philly. I feel like they could do what they did last week, and then that's going to put me in a hole. So Friar's got a chance here, but I'm going with me.
Yeah, last time you said that, you know what happened? They didn't do anything.
That's what I'm hoping.
Okay, I was just checking. All right, let's jump to Jeremy versus Robbie. Andy, you want to jump in on this one?
Sure. So I am going with Jeremy in this one, mostly because Robbie just lost Russell Wilson, and that's a really big deal. And Derrick Henry has Buffalo, which doesn't feel like a good matchup. Even if Buffalo's defense wasn't good, which they are, Derrick Henry didn't. His one bad week was when they got blown out by the Cardinals in week 1, and that's probably going to happen against the Bills on Monday night. So I'm not expecting him to come anywhere close to his 18.5 point projection. So good on you, Jay.
I'm going to agree. Damian Harris, I don't even know what's going to happen with him this week. Jacobs against Denver. Like you said, Henry versus Buffalo. They are just tough matchups. I still don't like his wide receiver 2 spot. Jeremy's getting the win this week. Boy, what do you got?
Too many question marks on Robbie's team right now. It's going to be Jeremy.
Boom. Nailed it. All right, so let's go to Chris versus Paul.
You taking this one, Ty?
Yeah, I'm jumping in. Give me just a second. So Kamara's on bye. Chris has Collins in it as running back 2. I don't like that. I don't know. He'll throw A.J. Brown probably in that flex, which will be fine. Aaron Jones against Chicago, I like. Although Chicago's defense has been tough, but Mahomes, Metcalf, Johnson, Jones, too much firepower on Paul's team. I'm taking Paul.
Yeah, this is an easy Paul for me. I think McCaffrey's going to be back. Dallas Goedert's got COVID. He's probably not going to be cleared in time to play Thursday night, so Paul's going to have to pick somebody up at tight end. But honestly, I don't even think he needs him. Debo on a bye. He's not hurting him either. Paul's team's just too good. I go Paul.
Paul leaves his tight end spot empty to save the roster spot, still wins.
Last time Paul didn't start somebody, the fantasy gods didn't like it, though.
That is true.
So that's the only downfall to Paul trying to cheat the system here. I'm not sure how that plays out with the fantasy gods. But anyway, Boyer, you want to jump into me versus Charlie this week?
Yeah, let's take a look at that real quick.
Let's do it. I don't like
Oh man.
Ty, did you know your team's hurt?
it is. I have noticed. Thank you for the update.
Charlie's gonna live and die by that Baltimore Chargers game. I think it's gonna be a banger. Ty, you've got some injuries piling up on your team. So I'm gonna go with Charlie, and that's just largely because you just, with the injuries piling up, I just don't think that you have enough.
All right, Andy, what do you got?
I think that I'm going with Ty in this one. And I'm surprising myself here, but I think that Zach Moss against Tennessee on Monday night is a good play. And I think that Washington's secondary is horrendous. They've been okay against the run, but their secondary is flat out bad. This is a Tyreek Hill game if ever there was one. I think that the Ravens-Chargers game could be a banger, and that would be huge for Charlie, but I like what Ty's got here. I'm going with Ty.
I said I'm going to go with Charlie because I have to pick against myself, but I'm not doing it. I'm going with myself.
Shit. That means I'm going to lose.
That's right. I like some of the matchups. Dallas versus New England, I like. Prescott and Lamb maybe can connect this week. Who the heck knows? Like Andy said, I like Moss. And then we'll see what happens from there. So, but I'm taking me. I can't continue this losing streak. So eventually I'll get this W. Andy, you want to do duo versus Boyer since I don't want him to jump in on himself first?
Sure. I think I'm leaning Boyer here. Josh Allen against the Titans, bad secondary is a great play for the duo, but they've had Josh Allen go off in other games this year, and they're still not cracking 100 points. Boyer's team, even without Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think is going to be fine. So I give it to Boyer just because the duo's team is not great.
Yeah. I'd love to disagree with you. But the running back situation for the duo is just, granted, Boyer's running backs are bad, but I think the running back for the duo are just not good. So I'm going to go with Boyer here. This is a game I should try to make up with the duo, but I'm not going to.
Waivers are going to determine if I'm able to win this game. If I'm able to get my targets and waivers, actually get something out of my running back group, my wide receivers have enough good matchups. Waller against Denver isn't great, especially without a coach. So who knows what's going on with that? I'm leaning duo here.
Interesting. Do you want to share any tidbits about? Do you want to put a contingent on it since this won't air until tomorrow? About if you get X player, you win. If not, they win.
I don't have any fabs, so you'll be fine on my end.
I am picking up a defense this week, and that's all I've got in for.
If I get Daryl Williams is the guy. He was already stealing a lot of touches from Clyde Edwards-Helaire, so if I imagine that he gets his work plus Clyde Edwards-Helaire against Washington, they should lead, should have some opportunities there. That would give me a solid enough running back one where I feel like my team could then pull out a win. If I don't get him, I have nothing at running back. I mean, as bad as duos is, I have nothing at running back. So that's where I'm at. If I should have handcuffed my guy.
I was just gonna say, am I to understand that you are regretting not handcuffing?
No, I'm not regretting it yet. We'll see how waivers pans out.
All right.
All right. Let's move on to Colin versus Walker. Walker's, yeah, half of Walker's team is on a bye. So, Colin?
I think Colin.
Boyer?
What are you thinking?
I'm in on Colin.
Guys, Walker surprised me twice already. Don't let it happen again. He's got a questionable Julio, a questionable rocket ship, and then everybody else is on bye. So I think his waivers are going to be important this week too, if he cares to play waivers. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. So let's jump into these last couple dad jokes I've got, since I've ran a couple of them already. So the first one here is going to be a little Halloween themed. Why are ghosts so bad at telling lies? Because you can see right through them. Huh?
Did you have Laffy Taffy today, Ty? Is that what's happening?
I might have. I was just trying to find a bad Halloween joke. I don't know what to tell you. Also, guys, I just found out that the company that produces yardsticks won't be making them longer. Won't be making them any longer. I already done messed up the joke. I can't even tell a good dad joke. Right?
Say what you will about my salty dog stories, but I have not screwed them up yet.
That's fair.
That's 5 minutes of stories too.
Well, listen, I just don't know how to read. I don't know how to tell jokes. It's fine. My first two came in nice during the middle. I segued into them. These last ones I just done messed up. It's fine. I should have just cut them.
Done messed up, Aaron.
That's right. All right. On that note, I hope you guys enjoyed some of the new content here that we threw out.
Yeah, let us know. Do you like this stuff? Do you like the old stuff? Do you like all of it? Do you want 3-hour podcasts from now on? What do you think?
Hit the bell so you know when this comes out. Right?
We'll tell you.
Oh, all right. All right. On that note, I like some of you. I know for sure I like Paul because he's hit the bell because he was watching our last podcast.
Did you guys see Walker commented last week? Thanks, Walker. Your team sucks.
You're a good guy, though. You're still one of my favorite. If we had a Discorder, you'd be our favorite Discorder. Maybe.
There. Yeah.
At least you commented. On that, we'll see you guys next week. Hope, Charlie, your team sucks this week because I need a win. Everybody else, do whatever you got to do. All right. We're out.